If college football had a word of the day calendar, I think week 8 would be best summarized by the word parity. We've got parity in the ACC, the SEC, the not so much the Big 10, but the Big 12 as always. And the conference title race for these three conferences are heating up. They're heating up fast. And the parity that I'm speaking of is across the playing field. It seems that everyone can beat anyone, and you better watch out because it could be your week. Hello, everyone. I'm your host, Nick Watts, and welcome to another episode of College Football Under Review. This is our Week 8 recap episode. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't yet. It helps us out, and know that you really enjoy the content and that you want to be a part of the Under Review community. But the three big headlines I have from this weekend are the previously mentioned ACC, Big 12, and SEC conference races heating up. It seems that we have no idea who's going to be in it. Some teams are elevating themselves from others, and some are just completely falling off and falling flat on their face, especially for UNC this weekend. But another headline is 3 teams in the top 10 went down this weekend. We have had, not since about 2007, I don't think we've seen this level of changing within the top 5, the top 10 on a week-to-week basis. And then the final question that's also a headline is Notre Dame back in the playoff picture? Because with some of these teams losing and a lot of these Power 4 teams having a great record suddenly just get a one loss on it, it kind of boosts Notre Dame a little bit, and their loss against Texas A&M maturing pretty well, even though they only lost by 1 point. But let's take college football under review after we talk to you about 38 Hot Tubs. 38 Hot Tubs is a family-owned and American-built business supplying Viking tubs that feature high-quality material and superior components, ensuring that every aspect of the hot tub is designed to last for years to come. When it comes to relaxation, recovery, and overall well-being, few things really do compare to the soothing experience of a high-quality hot tub. And for Rob Abel, it's all about helping people improve their health and quality of life. Whether you're an athlete looking for muscle recovery or someone who simply wants to unwind after a long day, soaking in a hot tub can provide numerous benefits. The ideal combination of warm water and hydrotherapy jets can ease tension, lower cortisol levels to also help combat anxiety. A hot tub even promotes better blood flow, which leads to better muscle recovery, reduced soreness, and improved flexibility, combined with overall cardiovascular health improvements. And even a nice nighttime soak can improve sleep quality by relaxing the body and mind before bed. So if you're interested in experiencing the therapeutic benefits of a Viking spa, reach out to Rob Abel today. If you mention this ad to Rob, your journey to relaxation and wellness starts with a $200 discount off one spa and $600 for an order of 2. 38 Hot Tubs. Whether you're looking for some relief from sore muscles, a way to enhance your fitness routine, or simply a place to relax with family and friends, Rob is here to help you find the perfect hot tub to fit your needs. Now, let's get into our game of the week. Georgia takes down Ole Miss, restarts their home win streak to 1. But Georgia takes down Ole Miss 43-35. And this Georgia team, what did they do? Like life, they find a way to win. This Georgia team in multiple games this season has come back from behind to win these tough matchups. They have trailed in the last 3 out of 4 games this season going into halftime, and they are 3-1 in those games, which is pretty astounding. And most of these are happening in the fourth quarter with a major comeback win. We saw it against Auburn. We saw it a little bit against Alabama, but nothing much actually there. We saw it against Tennessee. This Georgia, we saw it against Auburn. This Georgia team is just finding a way to win. And it's not like this Georgia team is the most talented one we've seen in there, but it seems like the team has come together a lot since that Alabama loss. And Gunnar Stockton, I mean, both teams just said, we're not even going to play defense. We're just going all offense. You knew Lane Kiffin was going to have an electric offense, but no one thought, I I don't even think Georgia fans thought that Mike Bobo could put together something quite like that. And then Gunnar Stockton, he just played great and came in clutch when he needed to. He had by far the best performance of his entire season up to this point. And when we look on the other side of the ball, yes, Trinidad Chambliss played very well. This was his first road environment, really big test. I think he did very well, but we saw what happened in the fourth quarter. When it came to crunch time, he wasn't able to, get it done. And then Georgia in the fourth quarter outscored Ole Miss 17-0 in the fourth quarter. The Georgia defense was 100% their key to success in the fourth quarter because, like I mentioned, the first three quarters, Georgia defense, they were just letting everything go through them. And in the fourth quarter, they just completely shut down Ole Miss, completely shut down everything. And that was the reason that they won. They just were able to find a way to win at the end of the day. And then that takes us to Vanderbilt beating LSU at home as well, 31-24. And I think what's very interesting about this is we have to sit back and say Vanderbilt is no longer a cute SEC story, but are here as a legitimate team under Clark Lee. I mean, Diego had one of his best games in the way he played, and I think we seriously need to start recognizing him as a Heisman contender. I know his stats aren't there in what they probably would look for. Some of the voters would look for just looking at box scores. But the way he leads the team down the field and the way he just puts his body on the line, it's almost like Haynes King, but this guy is doing it in a much more electric fashion, and you can definitely tell that he is a game changer for the Vanderbilt program. And they have a winning mentality now. Vanderbilt for so long has been the little brother, hey, we're keeping you in for academics. But now they are actually showing up as a big-time football team. And this is the first time now that we're doing the show on Monday. We have already seen the AP poll. And this is like the first time they're ranked in the top 10 in about, I think, since 1947, somewhere around that time. So this is very big. Clark Lee is doing a great job there. And then LSU. The LSU defense gave up the most points all season to an opponent in this game. And when their offensive performance has been lacking all season, this Vanderbilt team felt like they were able to confidently win. LSU couldn't get any touchdowns and really continued to settle for field goals, which ultimately cost them the game. And I'm starting to sit here and think, is the Brian Kelly era at LSU slowly fading away already? They've had so many blue chip starters come into that school, have so much talent, and yet it seems that they've been kind of stagnant in their player progression. I haven't seen these players, do anything crazy. Nussmeier, he's battling. You can definitely tell he is battling. He's fighting for every inch for this team. But this LSU team under Brian Kelly continues to be unlikable, and they are not able to finish these games. They held Vanderbilt to 0 points in the fourth quarter, and they weren't able to do anything with their offense to try and win the ball game. But this was very big for Vanderbilt. I think it's crazy that we're sitting here saying, okay, Vanderbilt has a legitimate shot of making the playoffs if everything goes right for them, which is just crazy to say. And LSU, kind of coming into the season looking like one of the favorites to win the national championship, are somehow one loss away from just completely being out of the playoff talks. So Vanderbilt gets it done against LSU, 31-24. And now, as we all know, it was the third Saturday in October. And so what did that mean? It meant Alabama and Tennessee played. And Alabama ended up beating Tennessee 37-20. And with this win over Tennessee, Alabama has now won 4 straight games against ranked opponents. Alabama got ahead early in this game, and the game kind of, like, with the box score, it looks close, feels close with all the stats, until right before going into halftime. Alabama had the 99-yard pick six that really just killed all of Tennessee's momentum. Tennessee had a lot of times it felt like they were driving, and then they just immediately would get stopped by the Alabama defense. But this Tennessee offense which is one of the best in the nation, was shut down by Alabama, which is very big for Alabama, that they are able to adapt at some of these different teams with different styles of offenses. And they held them way below their average yards per game, just a little bit over 100, which is crazy when you're looking at Tennessee and what they've put together and what Josh Heupel is able to do with that team schematically on the offense. What I think what's super scary about Bama, and the fact that, after week one, we kind of all thought that the dynasty was dead, the way Alabama played and just how that game went and how they got dominated. I think that with how Alabama is now able to drive the length of the football field, no matter the distance, is something that you really have to look out for. Ty Simpson has been surgical on his passes. This Ryan Grubb offense is taking form, and it's very deadly, very methodical, and it really just wears these defenses out. And Alabama is able to convert on third downs. They are able to keep the clock ticking, which is it's a completely different team, and what I feel like a lot of people are used to seeing, because Alabama only got 120 rush yards, another game where they got out-rushed. But at this point, it's almost looking like Bama really doesn't need too big of a run game to win these games, because this is another win in the Alabama column, yet they lost in total yards in this game. But Alabama beats Tennessee 37-20. And then USC and Notre Dame. Notre Dame beat USC 34-24. And I'm just going to say it. I've said it at the beginning of the season, but these Notre Dame wins are happening in strong fashion when Jeremiah Love gets some love from the offense and is handed the ball a lot. He had a career rushing day for Notre Dame, 228 yards rushing and a touchdown. His previous before that was around 157 yards. But with this win against a ranked opponent finally, the question is, do we have to start talking about Notre Dame being in the playoff conversation again? I think with their schedule and how easy it is, I think we have to assume that the committee will let in a 10-2 Notre Dame be in the playoff when it just comes down to it. It's how it's going to work out, and there's nothing we can really do about it because we don't vote on the committee. But this playoff format was built perfectly for a Notre Dame team like this. They're already up at 13 again for at least last week when they were ranked. And so it just, this team it's weird. It feels like they are great, but at the same time, they're not great. They're going to cakewalk their way to a playoff spot because these other teams like Miami getting a loss to a Louisville team that they shouldn't be losing to, Texas Tech losing to Arizona State, and then Ole Miss losing to Georgia. But I mean, Georgia was in the top 10, so that was good. But it's just weird that it seemed like Notre Dame was out. It was out, and then they just slowly keep winning. And it's always better to lose a game earlier in the season because the rankings are always going to favor you the further you get along. But the Notre Dame offense is by far better than the defense with how explosive they are. And in special teams, they made a great play to really just change the whole momentum of the game. And that was a 99-yard kick return touchdown by Price, the Notre Dame running back. The USC offense turned the ball over in two crucial drives that just killed their momentum again. And Notre Dame was allowed to get the win with just how much they were able to use and utilize the rush game, because the rush yards in this game, they outrushed USC, with Notre Dame getting 306 rush yards and USC getting 68. 68. I mean, it is just wild how much that they are able to run and have a deadly running back duo in those two, in Price and in Jeremiah Love. But it's weird seeing that this Notre Dame offense is better than the defense. I don't think this team is, or at least the defense, is as good as they were last season when they made the national championship run. But this offense is just completely better than what it was last season. And it's very interesting to see that switch happen this season. So outside of our top 4 games, let's get into some notable games around the country. And the biggest one we have to talk about first, Louisville beating Miami 24-21. Carson Beck looked awful and just completely unlike himself from the rest of the season. He had 4 interceptions, 0 touchdowns. It just looked like he couldn't get anything going. He looked, I don't know, just awkward. He didn't have that swagger that he typically does, and he was just throwing the wildest interceptions to coverage, and it was pretty crazy. But what's even crazier is Coach Braum with Louisville as the head coach is one of the best underdog winners in the sport and continues to lead this Louisville program in a positive direction. And this loss in the ACC shakes it up so much because Miami right now, with 1 loss in the conference, is in like the middle of the pack, because Georgia Tech and Virginia right now are who would, if we ended the season now, that's who would be going to the ACC championship game. And then Georgia Tech, nail biter of a game, beats Duke 27-18. The score may not look like it, but Georgia Tech had a huge fourth quarter rally to come back and beat Duke. And I feel as if in this game, Duke lost the game completely and just quit in the fourth quarter because Georgia Tech just kept running it down their throats. Georgia Tech just played their style of offense. And Georgia Tech may not be the best team in the nation, but they're still able to win on the back of Haynes King, who is another player that should be in the Heisman conversation, but the stats aren't going to look as beautiful as some of the others. So I don't know if he'll get as much love as he should. And then Florida beating Mississippi State 23-21. Florida, they got another win. So Billy Napier's still there? Nope, they fired him. They fired him after the game. And I completely understand. Billy Napier was not cutting it out at Florida. Now that we are recording on Monday, with Billy Napier being fired after this game, I think that he was fired because they really should have lost this game. Blake Shapen made one of the worst quarterback decisions to throw a pick at the end of the game, and he had 2 guys wide open. Instead of going for a field goal to win the game, they went with a They tried to get the points to win with a touchdown. I guess you just don't trust your kicker from that far away. But I don't think Jeff Lebby is stupid for going for that. I think it's he just had more confidence in his quarterback than his kicker. I don't think there's anything wrong with that, because at least you want to go out and say, I was swinging, instead of kicking a field goal and just being like, oh, well, why did we just not go for it? So I think it was a smart decision by Jeff Lebby. I don't think it rubbed me the wrong way. But with Napier gone, it will be interesting to see who takes over his place, who the rumors are going to be. And I said it a couple of weeks ago, this is going to be one of the most volatile coaching carousels we have seen in a while. We've already have multiple coaches fired, and we're just now about halfway through the season. And then in double overtime, Missouri beats Auburn 23-17. Auburn's football season, it has deteriorated in such a way I didn't think it was going to happen. It was so fast, and they need to, this is just my opinion, put in Deuce Knight, because Jackson Arnold is not cutting it out as an SEC quarterback right now at all. He has some of the worst stats in the SEC just throwing. It seems like he is always on the ground. You are watching a play and he's not completing a pass. He is just getting sacked, or he is falling. He's just throwing a light pass out. It's not looking good. It's not looking good for Auburn. But I think in this game, Missouri really just had all the momentum going into overtime, and it showed when they were doing the overtime coin flip, and the Missouri players just looked like excited. They were ready to fight, and the Auburn players just looked dejected. They looked like how their coach leads them. He quits in the end of the game when he has the chance to win, and it's just sad. It's slowly deteriorating. And then BYU getting it done against Utah, 24-21. I'm gonna say right here, I was wrong about BYU, but I think the real question I have is BYU good, or is Utah disappointing this season? And I'm gonna have to say both, as this Utah team under Kyle Whittingham has possibly become kind of like how Iowa is or Oklahoma State. You kind of just get into this thought process of like an 8-win season is just perfectly good in our books. We're not doing too bad. We're not doing too great. At least we have some stability within our program. But that's not going to get you national championships. That's not going to get you to big-time bowl games. And it seems like that's where this Utah program is headed, just kind of like an Iowa, just in the Big 12, where you don't have a crazy offense, your defense is good, and you are going to quietly win games and quietly lose them as well. But I thought BYU played great. I think they just played fundamental football and was able to get the win over Utah. Being at home always helps in a rivalry game, so that's just big for them. And then the other notable games, we've got one of the top 10 teams falling, with Arizona State beating Texas Tech 26-22. Sam Leavitt being back was huge for the Sun Devils, and he played a clean game with no turnovers, which is what you needed to do against this high-powered Texas defense. Texas Tech, they played a great game, but they left too much time on the clock for Arizona State to come back and win in the fourth quarter. So that was really the only reason that Texas Tech was just unlucky. We saw it against when USC played Illinois. They just scored with too much time on the clock, and they were able to come down and win the game. And Arizona State, they're a dangerous team whenever they're at home. Dangerous. And then UAB, they fired Trent Dilfer, and their next week they take down the American Athletic Conference top dogs in the Memphis Tigers, taking them down 31-24. Memphis, they were ranked. They were looking like one of the top contenders for that Group of 5 playoff spot, and just gets derailed by the UAB Blazers. Just wild. Just a wild game. Can't believe it. UAB turning things around, and Memphis, could they be out of the playoff race? We will see, but they are treading light water. They are just treading water. And then Texas A&M and Arkansas having a wild game. Texas A&M beating Arkansas 45-42. And I think I have to put more praise on Bobby Petrino, as he already has Arkansas looking so much different since he took over. They don't have much of a defense, but the offense is exactly performing like it should be with Taylon Green as the quarterback under center there. So I'm very interested to see if Petrino does get the head coaching job. I know that the biggest name that has been thrown around in the SEC potentially going somewhere is John Gruden. I don't know if that will happen. That's a conversation for another day. And then Minnesota beating Nebraska 24-6. And I'm just going to say this. Nebraska already looked bad, and I said on Thursday that they shouldn't have been in the top 25 anyways. PJ Fleck just has Matt Rule's number, and their defense just completely derailed Dylan Raiola and that Nebraska offense. It'll be interesting to see how Nebraska finishes the season under the third-year rule. And then Boise State takes down UNLV 56-31. It was a fun ride. I just have to say goodbye to the UNLV ride. It was fun and everything, but with the loss, I believe the American Athletic Conference will have the upper hand in getting the group of 5 bid. Who knows? Maybe UNLV can still win the conference and possibly be up in the conversation for it. But yes, Boise State getting a big win against UNLV. Boise State has UNLV's number. They've had their number for a short little bit, and they continue to have their number now. But that wraps up all of the Week 8 notable games around the country. So, what are my takeaways from Week 8? The ACC should end up being the wildest conference race in the country, with, like I said earlier, Georgia Tech and Virginia at the top of the standings. And then Vanderbilt. They have a legitimate shot to make the playoffs if everything goes right for them. And then when we're also talking about the SEC, Texas A&M and Alabama have separated themselves in the SEC from all the other teams. I think Georgia is just a step below them. I want to see Georgia continue to utilize this offense in Gunnar Stockton like they did this weekend to put them up there. But right now, Texas A&M and Alabama are undefeated in conference play, and they are looking like the 2 contenders to play in that SEC title race. And then Michigan. I'm saying it. I've said it once. I've said it twice. I've said it almost every week. But Bryce Underwood continues to look like a great quarterback in the nation, and I'm so excited to see how he develops into next season. And when we're staying on the topic of quarterbacks, there's 2 quarterbacks, in my opinion, that are right now fighting for kind of scratching and clawing any way to get ahead of each other in the Heisman race, and that's Fernando Mendoza with Indiana and Ty Simpson at Alabama. I think they are in a heated fight for the Heisman race, and right now it seems like these 2 are just trying to figure out a way to separate themselves. I think Mendoza is he's throwing a lot better stats, and he is putting up crazier numbers. So it'll be interesting to see how that shakes out. And Clemson and Dabo Swinney need to figure out something as they fall to 3-4. I don't know what you do. I don't know if you get him out of there or not. It just seems that Dabo Swinney's kind of lost that touch. It just doesn't feel like Clemson has that deadly killer mentality, that aura around them where you go, God, we got to play Clemson this weekend. It's like, oh, we're playing Clemson this weekend. So it's very sad to see that and that relationship with Dabo Swinney and Clemson. Something needs to be figured out because right now it's just not looking like a good situation for either one of them. And then Arizona State is one of the most dangerous teams to face at home. They are up there with I think 9 or 10 home game win streak. So they're up there, slowly getting up there. Right now, Alabama has the biggest home win streak. But Arizona State, they just take down big-time ranked opponents when they need to at home. And then UCLA has turned around things so fast since they fired their coach, they have 3 wins in a row now, or at least since the Penn State game, when they have 3 wins in a row. And something that hasn't been turned around is Arch Manning. And I just like to put the word out there that, yes, Arch Manning still looks to be like an average quarterback. They barely beat Kentucky this weekend. Barely beat them. And then Alabama is the first SEC team to win against 4 ranked opponents in a row with no buys. This Alabama team, there's something special about them. There's something crazy that's going on. Will they disappoint us, or will they continue to be the dynasty? Because after week 1, it felt like the dynasty was over, but suddenly the dynasty didn't go anywhere. And then Notre Dame has sneaked back into the playoff conversation with multiple top teams losing this week. And so that takes us into our closing categories. The good. I'm giving the good to what Clark Lee has created at Vanderbilt. It is amazing to see that program now actually be a threat, and teams not only have to take them seriously, but they're now facing a top 10 Vanderbilt next week, whoever has them. Maybe they're in one of our top games. But that is a huge win for Vanderbilt. Clark Lee has been doing an amazing job there, and this weekend was kind of like a first big win that they were looking for. They had lost to LSU for 10 years in a row, so I know that this was a big win for that fan base. And then the bad is Carson Beck throwing 4 picks and no touchdowns to lose to Louisville. Like I said, he didn't look good. He was seeing ghosts. He was just throwing picks left and right and no touchdowns. It's not just an ugly look. It's a bad look. It's a bad look. And I was over here saying, I'm here to see the Villanark happen. I'm ready to see him come back and be this great player. But boy, oh boy, he did not look like it last night. And then the ugly, it has to be University of North Carolina losing to Cal on a absolutely humiliating 4th quarter fumble. It was humiliating. The guy he dropped it in the end zone and he was like crawling. And it's like, dude, just get up. The ball is right there. It was humiliating that he didn't have the awareness to get up, because it took a couple seconds for Cal players to get there. He's just army crawling in the end zone. And was not a good look. It was an ugly look. It was just not nice at all. And then last but not least, we got to give our player of the week. And who is that player of the week? It's Gunnar Stockton. He had 26 for 31 passing attempts. He had 289 passing yards, 59 rush yards, and a combined 5 touchdowns through the air, by air and by land. But yes, Gunnar Stockton, he just looked phenomenal. He played a great game, and I'm going to be here to recognize that great game. So Gunnar Stockton, player of the week. So with next week going, let's look at some of the best games that we are going to look at. And before I get through these, we had a lot of SEC games this week. There were 3 SEC games. I pick these games based on the top ranked matchups and just who it so happens to be. If there aren't 4 top ranked matchups, I will kind of put what I think is one that I'm going to be excited to watch and really want to micro analyze, because I want to learn more about these teams and how this matchup can go further. So I literally just picked these because there's going to be more SEC teams that we take a look at into next week. And the big games are Ole Miss at Oklahoma, Texas A&M at LSU, Missouri at Vanderbilt, and then Houston at Arizona State. So don't be mad at me. because I have another 3 SEC teams. It's just my way of picking them, and it just so happens we've got another loaded SEC just masterclass schedule. And so that's what's going on. Because we've got the mic, we are taking college football under review, and this episode was a little bit shorter than most. Got back from a fun weekend, and but we'll be back to our normal schedule as we continue moving forward through the football season. I'm Nick Watts. Thank all of you for tuning in to this episode, and we'll see you next time when we take more college football under review.